During President Biden's trip to Israel, Russian President Vladimir Putin was in Beijing. Putin met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping to reaffirm the partnership between the two countries. While President Biden has affirmed the American support for Israel, Russia and China have called for a ceasefire. Steve Inskeep joins us now. He is a host of NPR's Morning Edition. He is also the author of the terrific new book, Defer We Must: How Lincoln Succeeded in a Divided America. Steve, thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Steve, you have spent a lot of this week talking to people, covering this conflict, analyzing this conflict. What is this moment like for the United States as well as for Israel and Palestinian leaders as they confront it?
I thought it was telling earlier this week when President Biden spoke in public during his visit to Israel, and maybe caution is not the word, but tried to offer words of wisdom to the Israelis about going too far, doing things that they would regret, as he said the United States had done after 9/11. The question is, how far is Israel willing to go? How many civilian casualties would become too many? I had an opportunity to talk with an Israeli cabinet minister just at the beginning of this conflict who said in advance, before being asked, civilians are going to be killed and the world just needs to accept it. I paraphrase here, but essentially he said this is inevitable and be prepared for it. He gets a warning then, or Israel gets a warning then from the president about whether you might go too far. These massive protests may not matter to the Israeli government now. They need to respond to their people, but at some point it becomes a serious problem for them and for the United States.
What's your assessment of where the United States is in terms of how long it could support Israel in this conflict?
Well, it seems to me that the United States would stick with Israel for a long time because it is a bipartisan matter. It is not peeling apart in quite the same partisan way that Ukraine is, for example. President Biden, even as he has sent these notes of caution, has emphasized the United States supports Israel. I don't think Israel's political support is in any particular danger, and the money is there, assuming that the House of Representatives gets together at some point to actually do its job.
I took a walk yesterday past the Lincoln Memorial, and I thought about your book, which is just a great read. And
thank you.
When you think about the divisions then under Lincoln, obviously civil war, high tension in the country, it's not directly comparable to what's happening on Capitol Hill in any way, but what are the lessons we could learn from your book and from Lincoln about how to interpret now?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot because I realized that Abraham Lincoln did deal with people that he disagreed with. This book tells his life story through his meetings with 16 people that he differed with in some way. It didn't always succeed. Some of them went to war against him. But he understood that he didn't need to get everyone to agree. What he needed was a majority. That's what democracy is about. And it was interesting in your previous segment to hear the joke about the Republicans learning to count. They're trying to get to a majority, but they seem to have started this process of decapitating their leadership without knowing how they can get a majority for anybody else. That's the most basic thing. You can't get anything else done if you don't do that. That is a fundamental truth that Lincoln understood. And I'm sure that the Republicans trying to build a majority now would say they understand, but they got themselves in a position where they don't have it.
What was Lincoln's approach to differences of opinion that really set him apart from other leaders?
I think he didn't take things personally. Frederick Douglass, a great anti-slavery activist, publicly eviscerated Lincoln again and again and again, called him a racist, called him all kinds of things for being slow to act against slavery. Lincoln still took meetings from Douglass and they became friends, and they absolutely were allies in the cause. Lincoln didn't take it personally. He also didn't act like he was morally superior to people on the other side of the issue, even slave owners. He believed slavery was morally wrong, that the system needed to be destroyed, but he didn't say that it was a personal matter that made him need to virtue signal or show how he was better than the other person. And that sometimes did make it possible for him to deal with people who had very wrong beliefs, but he could get some value out of them for the country.
In just the final minute here, Steve, are you confident when you look at the future, not just as a reporter, but as a historian?
Confident. Well, I'm confident there will be a future.
Okay, so pretty bleak.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I mean, I have a certain amount of hope just because I take a long view. And I realize that things that seem terrible to us now may not turn out to be so. The Civil War was a terrible tragedy in which hundreds of thousands died, but it ended slavery and led to a more equal society. We're not going through that kind of extreme struggle now. We are going through struggles about what kind of a country we want to live in. been, and that could end up being for the better. We don't know, and we won't know for another decade or two or many.
Steve Inskeep, just great to have you here on set. We appreciate it. Congratulations
Thank you.
on your new book.
Thanks.